Hello, Mandela class. Welcome to your second PSHE lesson of this half term. Today in our PSHE lesson, we will be looking at using our moral compass. If you remember what that is, well done. If not, we will discuss what that is. So your learning objective is, can I use my moral compass to resist pressure? Okay. Who do you consider to be a friend? Can you create a mind map to represent the qualities of a friend? So when you're making friends at school or outside school, what sort of qualities are you looking for in that friend? What is that friend like? Why do you think they are a good friend? So make your own mind map to represent the qualities that you would like to find in a friend, or that you've already found in a friend of yours at school or outside of school. Okay, so what qualities did you think of? When you think of your friend or a friend that you would like to have, what would you like them to be like? What characteristics do you want them to have, or do you think a good friend should have? Okay, so I've made a list of qualities that I would want my friend to have. I want to get rid of this. Okay, so I would want them to be loyal, honest, kind, considerate, generous, positive, unselfish, caring, patient, understanding, fair, and someone who keeps their promise. Did you think of any of those qualities that you might want to have in your friend? Or there might be these qualities, but in a different word. If you like some of these qualities and would like to add them to your mind map, you can also do that. So I would consider somebody who's loyal, someone who doesn't just give up on you or give up on your friendship, who's there for you when you need it. That doesn't mean you have to always talk to them every single day, but you know that if you need something, or if you need some help, if you need to talk to somebody, they are there for you. So they're loyal to your friendship. Someone who's honest with you, someone who doesn't lie to you, someone who's kind, not just with you, but with also other people. You see that they treat other people with kindness. Someone who's considerate. So that means they consider other people's feelings. So they think about how they treat others based on how they think it might make them feel. Someone who's generous. That's kind of links to being unselfish. So if you're generous, you're not selfish. Positive. Someone who doesn't just constantly moan about everything and is negative about everything. Someone who's quite positive in life. So they see the better side of things. Someone who's caring, which also goes with being kind. Someone who's patient. So they don't, for example, lose their temper very quickly. They have patience with other people. For example, you might be planning on playing a game together, but you're busy doing something else. That person should show that they're patient and not constantly trying to rush you to do something. Someone who's understanding. So you might want to talk to them about something that's bothering you. Even though they may not have experienced that same situation, they could also show at the same time that they're understanding of your situation, even if they may not have ever experienced it before. Someone who's fair. From my experience working with you guys, I don't think any of you like unfair situations. I don't think anybody does. So somebody who treats you fairly and treats other people fairly, and someone who keeps their promise. you want to feel like you trust your friend, and if your friend makes you a promise and then doesn't keep their promise, you sort of question how much you trust that person, and that can affect your friendship. Okay, now have a think. You don't have to write these down, but pause the video and have a think. What's the opposite of these qualities? So you can do it about the qualities that I've written down, or you can use the qualities that you've written down on your mind map. You've thought about qualities that you want to find in a friend. Now, what's the opposite of those qualities? So there will probably turn out to be qualities that you wouldn't want to find in a friend of yours. Pause the video and have a go at doing this, and play the video when you're ready. So the opposite of some of them, we're just going to go through some, might be, for example, the opposite of positive would be negative. Someone who's very negative. Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. Someone who's just constantly negative about everything. And that doesn't mean if you tell them to do something that they don't really want to do, and they say, no, I don't really want to do that, that doesn't mean they're negative. They might genuinely not want to do that specific thing. But somebody whose mindset, for example, if we're at school and we're learning, someone who's constantly negative about their work. Oh, this is boring. Oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm not going to try very hard. Someone who's very negative about every situation. Caring, the opposite of that would be someone who's not very caring, someone who might be quite mean, for example. The opposite of fair might be someone who's unfair, someone who is unselfish. The opposite would be somebody who's really selfish. They might want to keep everything for themselves. Someone who's honest, someone who's dishonest, that would be the opposite. So somebody who does not tell the truth or is not honest with you. Okay, you've made a list of qualities that you would want to find in a friend. For you, which qualities make a good friend and which qualities make a bad friend? So you could maybe choose a couple of the ones that you've written down. Which qualities do you really value in a good friend, and which qualities, maybe from your experience, do you not want to have in a good friend, or which qualities make a bad friend? Then play the video when you've thought about that. Okay. For me, somebody who is understanding is very important, and somebody who is positive is also very important, because I feel like if I'm around somebody who's very negative, it affects how positive I am towards life. So I wouldn't want to be around someone who's always negative. Is it possible to have a mixture of good and bad qualities in a friend? So you might have a good friend, but nobody is perfect. So is it possible to have a mixture of good and bad qualities in a friend? Can you think of examples? Okay, I think it is possible to have a mixture of good and bad qualities. Somebody may have a lot of good qualities as a friend, but for example, might be a little bit impatient. Does that make them does that automatically make them a bad friend? Not necessarily, because you might look at all the other good qualities and think, okay, well, they've got all these qualities that I like in a friend. They've got one bad quality that I may not appreciate, but they are still a good friend. Just because they do certain things, or one thing or two things that I don't like, it doesn't mean they are a bad friend. So we can't expect people to be perfect and display all the qualities that we might appreciate in a friend. But then we have to choose. We have to see whether we are willing to have that person as a friend with the bad qualities that they've got, or are the bad qualities a little bit too much? Okay. Now I want you to think about your best friend, or if you were to have a best friend, what would make this friend better than the other friends? Are you loyal to this friend? How far would you go to maintain, this is meant to say you, sorry. How far would you go to maintain this friendship? So, for example, would you be willing to do anything that your best friend, that's also meant to say your best friend. Would you be able to do anything that your best friend asked? If not, why not? So think about a friend that you're very, very close to, and how far would you be willing to go to hold on to that friendship, to not lose that person as a friend? Okay. Okay. Have you thought about how far you would be willing to go, and what would you be willing to do anything that your best friend asked? If not, why not? So, you may have a really good friend and you really value this friendship and you're very loyal to your friend. You don't want to lose that friend as that person as a friend. But they might ask you to do certain things that you might not agree with. Just because they are your friend or your best friend, does that mean that you have to please them and you have to do the things that they say? Otherwise, you're worried that you might lose their friendship. Well, that's where the moral compass comes in. So, if that person is asking you to do something that you might not necessarily agree with, you will have a feeling inside yourself. So you might start feeling a little bit anxious because you don't want to do what they're asking you to do. You might start feeling a bit nervous or a bit uneasy. You're just not feeling completely happy with what that person is asking you to do. So the answer to this question from me would be, would you be willing to do anything that your best friend asked? It depends. It depends whether, it depends whether the thing that that person is asking me to do, whether I agree with it, whether I think it's a good thing to do, or whether I don't think it's a very sensible thing to do. So it all depends on how it makes you feel and your knowledge of what is good and what is bad. So, what things might a friend ask you to do that may go against your beliefs or values? Discuss or think about different ways that friends may pressure you to do things that you don't want to do. How could you say no or get out of a situation without causing offense? So, create a mind map about things that a friend might ask you to do that you don't agree with. It goes against your beliefs. So you don't think it's the right thing to do. And how could you say no to that to get out of that situation without being rude to the person, without offending the person? So have a go at creating your own mind map. Okay. There are lots of things that somebody might ask you to do that you don't agree with. You might be very good friends with someone, and for example, they might pressure you, and it's called peer pressure. Can you say that after me? Peer pressure. Peer pressure is when your peers or your friends around you pressure you to do something that you don't want to do, that you don't agree with. So there are lots of things. You might have been in a situation where you've been asked to do something, or you've been pressured to do something that you didn't want to do. So I'm going to go back to this picture quickly. Here, this person is being faced with peer pressure. There are people around him saying, go on, do it, please, come on, you can do it. But does he look like he's sure about what they're asking him to do? He looks kind of hesitant because he's probably thinking, that's not something that I want to do. You may have been in a situation, you may have been in multiple different situations where you've been faced with peer pressure, where somebody's asked you to do something that you didn't want to do. For example, you could be very good friends with somebody, or you might have friends around you that may have pressured you to make fun of somebody, for example. Or you might be on the playground playing with your friends, and your friends have pressured you to go and push somebody, for example. Now, that's where your moral compass comes in. A compass, as you know, is used to point to the direction that you want to go. It points to north, so you know where you're going. Now, your moral compass, it's not a physical thing. It's not an actual thing that's inside you. We don't have a compass inside of us, but a moral compass is sort of in our head, and it makes us feel a certain way. So if somebody was to ask you or to pressure you to go and make fun of someone, what would that make you feel? Would you be happy to go and do that thing that the person is pressuring you to do? If not, what feeling is it going to give you? Well, you might give in to the pressure, but when you go to call that person a rude name or be mean to them, you might feel anxious, or afterwards you might feel really guilty for doing what you did. So that's your moral compass telling you that you've just done something that's not right, something that's wrong. So I want you to think about that with the situations that you're placed in. It's very important for you to trust yourself and trust your own instincts. You know what is right and what is wrong. So next time you are faced with a situation where you feel like someone is pressuring you to do something that you don't want to do, make sure you listen to your moral compass. You know better than anybody around you whether something feels right to you or whether something feels wrong. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling and make sure that you have got strategies to get out of that situation. So how could you get out of a situation where you're being pressured to do something that you don't want to do? Well, you might just say a firm no. You might say, no, I don't want to do that. You might give a reason as to why you don't want to do that. No, I don't want to be mean to this person because it will hurt their feelings. Or you could try and get that person to be more sympathetic. You could say, well, how would you feel if somebody was to say this to you? You could also try and think of ways of changing the subject. So you could say, well, how about we go and do this instead? So have you thought about your own ways of getting out of a situation? You can practice those ways. You can even practice them in your head. So you could practice saying no in your head so that when it comes down to the situation, you are confident with saying no. Right, well done, guys. Good thinking during this PSHE lesson. I just want you to think about your moral compass and trust yourself, trust your instincts. And next time you're faced with a situation where you feel a little bit uncomfortable, think about why you feel uncomfortable. And don't always listen to what your friends pressure you to do because they're not always right, even though they may be your best friend. So trust your moral compass. And I will see you in the next PSHE lesson. Bye, Mandela class.